All right. Well, I do see we have a couple of attendees already with us. Letting folks know as they're getting into the webinar that we're going to start in just a few minutes. We have a bunch of people registered today, so we're just going to, hold for a few minutes before we go fully live. As you're getting logged in, would love to know where you're joining us from today. I think we have people from all over the country, maybe some outside the country as well. So you have access to the chat tool. So would love to know where you're joining us from today if you're willing to share that. And we will be live in just a few minutes.
Let us know if you're eating breakfast or lunch right now. DC, we're right up the road. We're actually about right in between DC and Delaware here in Baltimore, at least from my side. Nice to see you, Sarah and Nicole. Marquette, Columbus, Seattle.
See, we got the East Coast here.
Need some West Coast people.
Here we go. Here we go. Southwest.
Plants.
Welcome, Elise.
Buoy. Love it.
I see people are still like getting in the door here. So if our speakers don't mind waiting just a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, and so for those who are on, I'm Heather with EcoMap, and I'm really excited to be here today to hear this discussion, and thank you for making time. If you have a minute and you haven't seen the chat, go ahead and click on that. You can use that today to ask any questions you have or make any observations. Also, we'd love to know where you're joining from today, so if you have a second to tell us where you're joining from. Looks like we have representation across the country and maybe a couple people outside the country too, so that's always fun to see. And we'll just maybe like one more minute and then we'll get started, Kevin.
Sounds good.
Okay, fantastic.
Before we formally get started, Jordana, where is that background from in Oregon?
This is at the coast. I don't know the exact location, but it looks maybe like the southern coast of Oregon. And if you have not been to the coast, anywhere along the coast of Oregon, you must put that on your list because it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. I'm a little biased, but and Oregon, I believe, is the only state where the entire coastline is 100% public. So you can explore every little corner if you want.
That is awesome. I had no idea. I grew up in South Florida, and that's exactly the opposite of the case. Everything is commercialized and condos and private area. So I love that that type of inclination.
Yes, it's very Oregon, I must say. So it's lovely. The Oregon coast just looks different in different parts, of course. So you can have the sand dunes down south, the famous golf courses and Bandon, and then you've got tide pools and lots of rocky scenes and everything. So definitely not as warm as the Florida coast. I will say that, but has other things to offer.
Absolutely.
All right, I see we have all regions of the US logged in and ready to go. So maybe in the interest of time, we should go ahead and get started.
Perfect. Well, sounds like a plan. Heather, thanks for queuing me up. And Jordana, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you everyone here with the dozens we have in the chat. I appreciate you spending, again, your breakfast or your lunch with us this morning or this afternoon. So I'm Kevin Carter. I'm the Director of Ecosystem Success for EcoMap Technologies. And what that essentially means is I'm here to help both our customers, our partners, the thought leadership that we're trying to put forward in general, and really synthesize all those together, whether that is informing new product development, novel use cases for what we're building, or really just trying to better understand what are the challenges and struggles and opportunities of entrepreneurial support leaders. So we have an amazing entrepreneurial support leader here today, Jordana Barclay from Business Oregon, which is the Oregon statewide economic development organization. And we're going to be talking about ERM, which stands for Ecosystem Relationship Management. it's funny that E can go many ways whenever you're talking about E-ship, whether it's entrepreneurship or ecosystem building. But with that, we're basically going to talk about the use cases that Oregon has had in mind. But I do want to give a big disclaimer before we start. This is something that we just launched last month. We're very excited about it, and we've gotten some good implementations underway. That being said, the main focus of this will be more on the impetus for ERM and the why behind it. Again, I don't want to put Jordana on the spot and say like, hey, talk about all these things that you've been doing with ERM when we're just getting that launched soon. But as you'll soon hear, I think there's a really intriguing use case for helping to better support entrepreneurs through more hands-on navigation and making sure that the navigators that they have across the state are better equipped with the information they need to help execute on that mission. So with that being said, I would love to introduce our wonderful guest today, which is Jordana Barclay, who's an innovation strategist at Business Oregon, where she oversees programs designed to support science and technology companies. So with over 20 years of experience, she's led initiatives that foster business growth, innovation, and community development. Before joining Business Oregon in 2019, she developed and supported industry partnerships focused on workforce development at both the local and statewide levels. So I was going to say, please give a warm round of applause for Jordana, but I don't think you'll be able to based on the Zoom setup. So I'll do that for you. First, I would love to toss the ball your way and say, can you share a little bit more about your role at Business Oregon and what drew your interest to this type of work?
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for having me here. So yes, I've been here for 6 years as an innovation strategist, and in this role, I manage several programs that provide both grants and direct investments to support innovation and entrepreneurship across Oregon. Most specifically, when we talk about innovation in the context of our programs, we mean traded sector, scalable, high growth companies, often investable. Our team also does kind of general entrepreneurship as well, but my space is more in the innovation. The program that utilizes EcoMap and that we will soon be rolling out ERM is called Regional Innovation Hubs. And that's a new program, relatively new program in Oregon that developed out of our 10-year innovation plan. So I have multiple programs kind of in my portfolio, but the Regional Innovation Hubs is kind of my baby. There's so many things that interest me about this work. I love being able to take kind of like a recommendation in our 10-year innovation plan and develop and implement it so that it's actually providing a service to folks, in this case, innovative entrepreneurs. I really enjoy working with and learning about the companies that are supported by our programs, and this program in particular. So many of our companies that we help support make a global impact. There's a company in Central Oregon that's working on drought mitigation strategies. Many companies are working on cancer treatments. One company in Portland is creating accessible ways for people in Africa and India to get tested and treated for sickle cell anemia. So they have this global impact, but because they are in Oregon and we help support amongst many other partners and friends, support their growth in Oregon, which means that our state benefits too, with obviously a strong company, with good jobs, resilient companies. Obviously, with a broader scope, those companies can have a longer lasting impact. So having these companies that make a difference both on the large and small scale and learning about them and seeing kind of the people behind the stories too, and our team playing, a small but meaningful role in amplifying those efforts is probably one of my favorite parts of the job.
Yeah, I totally get that. There's something about being able to support entrepreneurs in their journey and knowing that you're not patting yourself on the back of look at all these successful entrepreneurs I've created, but the fact that you're able to remove roadblocks or just help make it a little bit easier to be an entrepreneur, which is one of the hardest jobs in the world, is definitely a rewarding part of it. And before we go into the use case for ERM, I'd love if you could shine a little bit more of a light on the Regional Innovation Hub, like the strategy, how it came out of this plan. I've been seeing with some other states that's becoming more and more of a popular way, and I would call it a pretty one of my colleagues or ecosystem building colleague doesn't like the word best practice. She should often say emulatable practice, not to like try to qualify it, but say like, hey, here's something that we're seeing you can not just copy and paste, but you can take it as inspiration and then make it your own, make it distinctly Oregon. So I'd love to help for the crowd to learn a little bit more about that and how that fits into the regional innovation plan.
Yeah, I really like that emulatable practice because that was definitely a huge component of developing and building out this program, looking at other states and seeing what they've done, but then adapting for what we call the Oregon way. And I'm sure many states kind of, have their own culture and they like to adapt to what works best for them. So yeah, the innovation hubs, as I mentioned, came out of a recommendation of our 10-year innovation plan, and it really was about kind of two main things. One, making sure that innovation-based entrepreneurs had resources and support throughout the state. Oregon is, pretty large geographically, but probably don't totally fact check me on this, but about half of the population is around the Portland metro area. So we have one large city. And so a lot of those resources are concentrated, understandably, in the largest metropolitan area. So making sure that, there's accessible ways to connect, but then also even with any large city that has large resources, sometimes those can get siloed. And so the hubs are really about that coordination and collaboration in addition to the provision of services. And so that's been the really exciting piece is, trying to really encourage that collaboration and connection. And again, we, looked at other states, and kind of saw, what was really impactful. Of course, there's always differences, and some of the other states I looked at had a lot more additional investment than we were able to provide. But I think that, given the limited resources, we've made a lot of progress. As I said, it's relatively new. We started kind of socializing and building out the program in 2022, and then officially launched last year. So the program has really only been deployed, so to speak, for about a year. It's its own kind of startup, which does provide some interesting perspective for the hubs that are providing services also to startups. But really looking forward as we move in the next couple years as we're kind of getting into the next few steps. So.
Yeah, it seems like it is such a new initiative, but already have seen a lot of galvanization and people coming together to support and be collaborative here. So I'm curious how you would describe the Oregon entrepreneurial ecosystem today. What is currently working and where are some of the gaps that still need to be addressed?
I would say what is working is just a really strong desire and commitment to build out these ecosystems and recognizing the value of that collaboration. And also recognizing that ecosystems are going to look different in different parts of the state. And if you are in maybe rural Eastern Oregon, that ecosystem is going to look very different than if you are in Portland or a college town like Corvallis or that, kind of county area. So recognizing there isn't a one size fits all approach. But also finding that commonality and supporting each other where there's that commonality. We have a very strong entrepreneurial culture in Oregon. Nike is always the common one that, of course, has the biggest name recognition starting out of, founder in Eugene and wanting to support runners, and now, such a large company and very impactful in our state and across the world. But, we are working with a much smaller scale than Nike's here. And so there's still that strong entrepreneurial culture, and we've got, many accelerators, incubators, and so many entrepreneurial support organizations that serve a wide range of entrepreneurs, innovation-based entrepreneurs, Main Street entrepreneurs, culturally specific, sector specific, and they're all, we're all trying to work together to really continue to foster that entrepreneurship and innovation too, which is really what's the most exciting. In terms of gaps, I think, having consistent data to tell your story is always a challenge. And talking to peers across other states. I hear that as well. I think in Oregon, we don't always tell our story well. And so being able to do that more, I think is an opportunity that we can definitely grow on and kind of toot our own horn. And then, there always can be enhanced coordination, but that's an area that we've made a lot of progress for, and it's still an area that I'm proud that we are where we are as it is. And then I think just always speaking from the statewide level, there's always going to be a challenge and finding that balance between kind of statewide versus local, and wanting to make sure that there's some level of consistency, but of course wanting to recognize that as I just previously said, each ecosystem is going to look a little different because of the diversity of the state.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially when it comes to place-based type programs, sometimes, there might only be a fund open if you're a resident of Portland, or if you're trying to find, wet lab space, you're not trying to drive from Corvallis to Portland in order to do that.
Exactly.
So being able to help segment that seems really helpful. And it's a tough position where you have to think at the statewide level, because that's your job, but then you have to have empathy of people at the regional or the city level that are very interested in that type of building environment. So to a point you were just raising, what are some of the challenges that you face when it comes to facilitating collaboration or tracking support across each of the different hubs in the greater Oregon innovation ecosystem?
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest challenges is everyone kind of has their own system and way of doing things, especially when it is so localized. And I did used to work at the local level, so I try to be pretty empathetic to not the state not coming in and telling people how to do things. So always trying to find that perfect balance. But yeah, with everyone having their own system, whether it's data management, referrals, service delivery, of course, and is understandably committed to that system. And so trying to again find that balance with using that, but finding ways so that folks can talk to each other, whether it's systems or actual talk. And then as with any ecosystem or any groupings that have many nonprofit and community-based organizations, there's often a lack of capacity, especially now. We're, definitely seeing a lot of nonprofits and community-based organizations definitely overstretched. And so that often creates staff turnover. So some of the kind of historical knowledge can be a challenge. And so adding kind of collaboration to the to-do list, even though obviously that it should be inherent in the work, and most people do believe that it can feel like that's just one more thing to do on top of everything else when you have limited capacity or feeling overstretched. So we're hoping that a tool like ERM can help with that. And so I'm always trying to think about like how can we use technology where that makes the most sense to make that where they can provide that efficiency, where the technology can provide the efficiency, and where the staff and an actual human it provides the most value. So each piece is kind of providing their most value. So I'm hoping that will help address some of those challenges, that even though unfortunately I can't, like fully fund the entire system as much as I would like.
Yeah, you mentioned something about the collaboration earlier. It reminded me of a call I had earlier this morning with someone who's actually pursuing a PhD in Kansas for collaborative leadership science, which
Oh, wow.
we knew that. I mean, I guess PhD, you can really choose your own adventure in many ways, but and part of that's what we were talking about, was where collaboration is often an implicit thing when it comes to this type of work. But then what happens when you make it actually explicit that a part of your job is to collaborate or be a better collaborator? And being able to, then that doesn't also just happen out of thin air, right? And not saying it necessarily has to be an EcoMap, but there are tools, there are frameworks, there are that emulatable practices, we'll go with that one, that you can use to better facilitate that. So in your mind, how are you hoping ERM can serve as that collaborative tool for your work in Oregon, but also between these different innovation hubs at a regional level within the state?
Well, kind of as I just touched on it can be a little more built into some of the work that they're already doing because we already were using EcoMap and we're already, encouraging both founders, entrepreneurs, and the support organizations, to use EcoMap. So it's already hopefully in a lot of their kind of workflow or their resource guidance. And so that enables us to really, best leverage that technology, and then being able to really make it so it's not like such this extra huge lift on top of everything else. There's always going to be something extra, but really wanting to integrate it in kind of the existing workflow. I feel like we are a little bit of an advantage in that we've implemented EcoMap and we'll be implementing ERM at the relative beginnings of our program. And so that does make it a little simpler, and that there aren't like some well-worn paths that you're kind of asking people to change. But on the other hand, there's also challenges, and there's so many things to do as you're starting up, and then it's one more thing. But I think just being able to utilize that technology so that it is more efficient and hopefully easier on top of everything else.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think what'd be helpful for the attendees here would be talking a little bit about the evaluation process. Like I know we already had that relationship, but this also wasn't like a shoo-in. Oh, great, another tool EcoMap has. We're 100% use it. I know it has to actually fit the needs, and I'm sure you've done research on other CRMs, other tools. I'm sure Oregon has tried other things. I'd love if you could talk a little bit about the context of other either collaborative tools or CRM type systems, and then what made ERM stand out as something you wanted to try as opposed to something else.
Yeah, there were, excuse me, many considerations. One of which that, of course, we were using EcoMap, so it was kind of integrated, and we knew that it would be easy to use. One of the things that I really liked is that it's easy to use, but it's not simple, if that makes sense. Like, a Word doc is easy to use, but it's pretty, like you can only do so much within it, but it felt like there were, layers behind that, and we could still have some sophistication with the tool. And then a lot of well, I think every other CRM we looked at, they are large, kind of beasts of their own, and managing them kind of becomes their own job. And you have to hire a person to do that whole thing, or hire a consultant with, special certifications and things like that. And we don't have the capacity or the resources for either of those things. We do, as an agency, we have a large CRM, and often I don't know how often it gets used throughout the whole agency. There's definitely corners of it that do, or sections of it, but partly because it is so overwhelming, because it's like such a climb, and this was, easy climb, but still providing all the value. And then Kevin did not prompt me to say this. I will say working with EcoMap has been very easy, or, a small accessible company, or approachable. And so you work with us when this isn't, this particular field isn't working, or this tool isn't working. And so we're able to kind of organically flex and kind of adapt. And that's been really, really great, especially as someone who's, within this larger state bureaucracy. I'm not used to technology changes being relatively simple or easy. Not to say it is on the back end. I'm sure you guys have many challenges that aren't as easy, but you make it look simple to us. So that's, we appreciate
We'll take
that.
that. That's a huge, yeah, that's a huge endorsement in many ways, because we want to make it like easy but not simple, or simple but not easy, in the sense that we know it has to be technically complex, but we want to take that burden of the complexity and try to present a front end, and then also like a back end admin side that can be easy enough to navigate. And we also, I'll go right back to you, we really appreciate you specifically, and a lot of our customers who give us the grace of knowing that we're a young company that's also building new tools, rolling things out. In many ways, we're fortunate that a lot of our customers, their main job is to help support startups, and they kind of get startup life and all the things that go along with it. So not saying we want to rely on that type of grace, but it's also helpful knowing that things are often an iterative process, especially when it's an early adopter of a new tool. And we've honestly found some of the best improvements we've made, or even entire products that we've designed, have come at the behest of a customer, where they say something like, oh, this is great, I love what you do, but can it do this? Or can this other functionality be layered on top of it? And if we start to hear enough of that, well, that's customer discovery. You're never done with customer discovery, even when you're in the market and doing all this work. So it's super invaluable to us too. And we appreciate people that will straight up tell us when things are not working or need to be tweaked, or like, would be great if, this is my workflow. It'd be great if I could integrate this in a way. So that's helpful to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll also say too is, the our customers, whether it's the ESOs that are supporting companies or the companies themselves, obviously they're all coming from very different technology literacy levels too. And I think both EcoMap and what we've seen with ERM so far is that it adapts to that. You don't have to have a PhD in IT or whatever, that not my area of expertise clearly, but you have to have all this like super specific knowledge to enter information or to find information. And I think that's really helpful with any technology tool, but it clearly has been thought through.
Love to hear that. I'll pass it on to our product team, because they have been doing a lot of thinking through the past 6 or so months. One more question on this before we can move to some more of the next steps or the actionable side of it. What are some of the important goals that you're hoping ERM could achieve, again, either at the Business Oregon level or at the regional level?
So at the regional level is, we really want to provide them with a tool that's useful and helps them better provide services. Ultimately, that's what we want to do. And, as I said earlier, like free them up so that their greatest value, which is themselves and their knowledge and their expertise, is best used. And then for us is having data on the ecosystem that ultimately, we feel like can sustain long-term support for all of our work and all of the work that our ESOs do, demonstrating the value of our ecosystem, demonstrating the value of businesses. Sometimes, there's not always seen, the value of our work or economic development. And so being able to show that, and I think the more folks work together, that definitely helps, and having data on that, both, at the local, regional level and at the statewide level. And then, ultimately the goal is that our entrepreneurs, our founders, have real-time valuable information that is going to help them grow. That's, why we do this work. That's why our ESOs do their work, and ultimately is going to help the state. And that's really important. So I really want, all of those 3 levels, long term, hoping to see those goals met.
Perfect. Well, we'll move on to something you talked about a little bit earlier, but before we do, Heather from our marketing team dropped a question in the chat. If you're also using a CRM tool to coordinate your entrepreneur support, if yes, which is it? Feel free to also ask any questions through the Q&A feature here, and we'll have some time queued up at the end as well. And one thing people might be wondering is, like, what does this actually look like? Can I see it? We purposely didn't want today to be like a demo, like, gotcha, you came to this webinar and now you're gonna sit through an infomercial. We'll definitely be sending out tools to all the registered attendees after, so you can get a chance to see it. But I really just wanted to focus and put the spotlight on Jordana, Business Oregon, and their use case behind it, and then present the information a little bit later of what this might look like. So let's go to the storytelling side of things, because I think this is something that we talked about a little bit earlier, that it's important to actually have the quantitative, but then also marry it with the qualitative. People love stories. Some people are like super wonky. I can be wonky at times, and I love data, and data can tell a story, but nothing quite captures people like telling the story of an entrepreneurial journey, right? People can kind of empathize with that, and it's like kind of like a hero's tale in many ways. So what ways are you hoping ERM can help translate some of the stories and relationships into measurable insights that you can use for Business Oregon?
Yeah, I think a couple different ways. One is showing the interactions between entrepreneurs and the ecosystem, whether those are public entities, private, the ESOs, and being able to ideally demonstrate that this journey is not a solo journey, that it is this village, this ecosystem, and being able to show that, seeing trends. It's one thing that I'm really looking forward to, and hope we can gather from this, because I think that is a really important story to tell about business, and especially if economic times are a little more challenging, like they are now, especially for a small business. And we, as a state agency, of course, get asked that a lot, like, to look at that 10,000-foot level, and what are you seeing? So being able to point to trends that we've hopefully been able to gather from ERM, and measure those trending topics, and what are the resources that people are most in need of, and what is that storytelling about what's happening with companies, and in different parts of the state, because again, that could look very different in rural Oregon versus the cities, or a college town versus Portland, things like that. So just having that data, and the relationship component, and being able to see that a little more in black and white is
Yeah.
something I'm looking forward to.
We're looking forward to it too, because it's a pretty nebulous thing. It's often anecdotal
Yep,
when it comes
100%.
to it. And people know, this is the person you go to talk about, small batch manufacturing, or this is the person that's the funding wizard, right? And people get connected that way. But one, it's hard to actually close the loop on that. I can't imagine how many introductions I've made between people that I hope will have an amazing conversation, or can, there's a reason why, this is a great program to take advantage of. And then I just have no idea what happened unless I, bump into them in a networking event 6 months down the road, and I can ask them. So part of what we're trying to do is help close the loop with that, because, as people may know, EcoMap, the way we primarily find data through our kind of our core product, is a lot of just publicly available information. We're going out, we're curating it all, and we're putting it into a platform. And a lot of it's great because it's publicly available. We can see the accelerators, the funding opportunities, all of that. But in terms of, did this person actually use this thing? There's some proxies we can do from like online searches, but there's nothing quite like the people on the ground that are doing that direct support, that are running these programs, that know when things were utilized, what the impact of that might be, the ability to log notes, share information across the ecosystem. So it's not just all contained in one person's head or even one organization, but like kind of creating a multi-organizational CRM in many ways that have a related cause, commonality of helping support entrepreneurs across Oregon. But they can be focused on what they're interested in, but then you can get that 10,000-foot view where you can see what each of the different innovation hubs have been doing, and that all funnels up into state level activity. Whereas if you're just in Corvallis or Cascadia, maybe I'm not saying you don't care about the state, I'm sure they care about the state level stuff, but that's not their world is the region, or like their specific
Yeah.
slice of it. So
Yeah.
that's what we're going to try to do, and I think there'll be good stories that emerge as we start to see more of the journey. And as we all understand, it's definitely not a linear thing, but I think the trends that will emerge of maybe, where, like, what does a valley of death look like, visualize in the ERM of, here's all this initial support and motivation, and then maybe there's a 6 month to a year gap of, there's not quite a right resource or an organization, or they're very stuck on a specific topic. I think those will be helpful for us, but then I can only imagine how helpful that might be for our customers of, what new programs might need to get created, or maybe potentially where can funding get allocated in different ways based on some of this data. And that does lead me to one of our next future focused conversation topics of how might you see this infrastructure influencing, either long-term strategy or funding decisions when it comes to Business Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is being able to identify gaps, or, kind of what we were touching on, if we are seeing a lot of people, whether it's ESOs or the founders, looking for X resource, and we don't have it, or there are only two, or it's concentrated in one part of the state, and it would make sense that it was also available in another part of the state. Or on the flip side, if capacity is really overwhelmed, if maybe one organization is getting, hundreds of referrals, that is really good data to say, hey, this could, be a better investment here because there is a significant need. So really just kind of that gap analysis. And, we're always, as with any public entity or any entity, honestly, you're always, trying to make funding decisions based on, limited resources. And so, especially with public dollars, having the largest kind of ROI and what squeeze is worth the most juice, having that the data that could help justify and guide those decisions, I think is really a great opportunity.
Great. Look forward to seeing how that gets implemented. What advice might you have to other either people working at state agencies or organizations that are thinking about this concept of an ecosystem data infrastructure? Any learnings or things you can share that could be helpful as they start to grapple with this?
I mean, obviously, do your research. We demoed, many, many different tools. And, it was kind of over a period of time. So it wasn't like I sat down, like, I'm going to make this decision today. It was kind of here and there and until the right tool came along. I would also say don't let don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And so even if part of me had some kind of internal hesitancy, like, oh, we don't have totally enough capacity to support a new tool, and this the perfect thing is out there, and we just have to hire 5 more people and have $5 million more, and of course that's never going to happen. So even if you don't have the perfect setup, you can still move forward. And for us, we feel like we have close to perfect. Um, so we have a very usable, valuable tool with that. We don't have additional staff to support this. I have multiple programs on my plate. And this is, supporting EcoMap and soon ERM as a tool to support one of my programs is, a sliver of my overall job responsibilities, but it's still providing a huge, valuable resource to the system, to the ecosystem. And then I've one coworker. It's also a very small sliver of her work. And so, just get started is kind of, do your research, but then just get started. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised how far you can get down the road, even if it's not, ultimately as far as you want. But when is it ever as far as you want to be?
Well said. Sounds like you're paraphrasing a famous Oregon company, and just do it.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. I didn't set you up for that on purpose, but that's great. Thank you.
Fine goes. Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you for saying that. And that's one of our main goals, is to try to make people's lives easier. We know this is not easy, simple work. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's often hard and complex. And we like to try to help untangle some of those, or create some reduce some complexities wherever possible. But just by the nature of ecosystem building and then how nebulous ecosystems are, it can be tough. And we have a very similar motto too. It's I think it was the LinkedIn founder that said, if you're not like ashamed of the first product that you put out there, you waited too long. And we're definitely not ashamed of ERM, right? But that's, I think, the nature of like an iterative process, and
Yes.
for both us and the customers, of like, hey, we're putting something out there, you're getting it field tested, you're getting feedback from not just Business Oregon, but each of these different hubs. And then I'm sure what we have out, next month is going to be very different than a year from now. But that's the exciting part of it, right? The iterative nature of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I think iterative is the perfect word. Absolutely.
And I have one final question for you. I always like to end on this one when I'm doing interviews, because, ecosystem builders work very hard, and at times it can be thankless or unrecognized work, but I know we all do it for a reason. So I'm curious, what are you proudest of with the work that you've done with the Oregon innovation ecosystem throughout the years?
Um, So in May, we sponsored in collaboration with our university partners and lots of other partners, the first Oregon Innovation Showcase, and it really brought together all the different components of the ecosystem, education, the ESOs, public entities, and the founders companies were there as well. And that was the first time I think all those different kind of components of the ecosystem were all together, to showcase what we have done in Oregon and what we are still going to be accomplishing. And it, I was just so proud that there were people knew each other because we all are interacting together. Even we're not all in the same room together every single day, but there were so many cross connections and collaborations. And oh, you know that person, and you know that person. And so just the way that as a state, we all do work together. And I think having that showcase to really see that kind of in person was really, really incredible, and I was very proud. And that was one of the first opportunities where I think founders saw how kind of behind the scenes people really do connect and know each other too. And there were VCs there as well, and other capital folks, and everyone knows each other. Again, we're relative large geographically, but relatively small population wise, and so I kind of felt like we're the Goldilocks, like perfect size, so enough that not everyone knows everyone, but the right people know the right people, and there's still opportunity to grow. But just that collaboration, coordination that is happening, um, is something that I'm really proud of.
Yeah, we in Baltimore we have the expression of small-timore because it's a big enough city of 600,000, but everyone's about 1 degree away, and people are
Yes.
more than willing to make that. So maybe there's an Oregon similar pun that can be made there. Doesn't come
Yeah.
as easy as the just do it reference.
I like.
But thank you so much again for taking the time. People really are the heart of this work, right? It's even though we're talking about data and some of the quantitative stuff, at the same time, like those numbers and like the dollars raised counts or the employee counts, like those are all people and those are all impacts on people's lives. So I think not losing sight of the why behind this work, even as a lot of it can feel very operational and programmatic and structured that way, it's people is why we do this. So it sounds like you've got a great set of people that y'all are working with in Oregon. We have a great set of people that were on this call. So I appreciate all the attendees for spending some time with us. Jordana and I will hang around and answer any questions for a little bit. But I know people don't hate getting 18 minutes of their time back as well. So feel free to drop off, say thanks or whatever you want to do. But we'll hang out for a few more minutes here and appreciate your time.
And I'll put my email in the chat too if people want to also reach out.
Thank you.
I'm scrolling through to see where everyone's from. This is fun. I see Caitlin from Oregon. Yay. Hi, Caitlin.
Shout out. Right. We'll give it another 10 or 15 seconds or so, but if we don't see anything else pop up. Oh, Renee. How do you work? I'm guessing, how do you work with your regional?
Work, yeah.
Yeah.
So we provide the funding to the regional hubs, and then there's coordination. So we support a community of practice where the hubs meet monthly to have communication with me, with learn emulatable practices from other places, a lot of peer-to-peer support as well. So we're kind of um, the oversight, and the program itself is overseen by the Oregon Innovation Council, which is a public-private partnership kind of under the umbrella of the Economic Development Organization. What are some of the structural barriers for setting up the hubs? I would say, I mean, it's unfortunately a bit of a cliche, but not having enough resources. When I looked at other states that did a similar type program, they um, had like their initial seed of funding these type of entities was significantly higher than what we have available. So that's been a challenge. You know, there's a lot of kind of operational components, structural components to get a hub up and running. And so, you know, there's a lot of, you know, trying to make this lean but effective and you know, best utilizing funds, and don't know that I found the perfect balance of that. But we learned a lot this past year as we launched, and we're gonna continue to iterate as we move forward. Oh yeah, thanks for that link.
Send that as a follow-up as well. That might actually just be visible to us because it says who's the host and panelist, but
Oh, okay.
I'll drop a link as a follow-up to kind of the structure of the Regional Innovation Hub with Oregon.
And actually, we just announced new funding. So that webpage is, because we just announced on Monday, we'll adjust a little bit so that's not totally up to date, but it's fine to share. So we will, but I think most of those hubs will be continuing. Yes, and we've got Assad on as well, who manages the Portland Metro Region Hub. And they do a lot of great work, and they're the largest hub, of course, being located in Portland, and have a lot of different partners that they try to bring together and collaborate and coordinate with, and are doing a great job at that.
C2. Wow. All right, they're coming in.
Delayed reaction. Yeah.
Threatened to leave, and then the questions. I'll answer the one from Renee. Essentially, no. This is not a tool meant to plan conferences or summits. We can aggregate events through the tool, but planning definitely would not. That's more of, I'd say, like an Asana, or like more of a work task management thing. Can give suggestions. I mean, even like Notion templates are pretty good for that type of thing, but not through EcoMap. And then John had one. Are you including workforce data in support of new businesses? I'll say not through the platform, but I'll pass that to you, Jordana, if there's anything else.
Yes, we don't, we are not planning initially. I think long term we will. In Oregon, our public workforce system and the economic development system are not as probably well integrated as they are in other states. But that, you know, supporting talent development and ensuring that these companies have the talent they need to grow is definitely an important component. I think, again, you know, with that startup phase model, I think it's kind of later down in the timeline.
Good. We've got two more then, one from Aaron, another from Renee. What do your startup communities look like?
They look very different depending on what sector, what part of the state. We've got Portland, but Oregon in general has a very strong food and beverage startup community. CPG is also big in Oregon. Bioscience, and those again tend to be clustered more in the Portland area, but we've got a lot of advanced materials startup companies in other parts of the state, kind of more south Willamette Valley area, but again, also, you know, food and bev, bioscience, et cetera. In the rural spaces, more focused on ag tech, advanced manufacturing. So it really just depends on so many different, you know, what lens you're looking for. I definitely would recommend looking at or feel free to email me and I can connect you to hubs in different parts of the state, depending on if you're looking kind of with that geographic lens or a sector lens. We have another program on our team that has more of a sector lens, Centers of Innovation Excellence, and they are focused in particular areas. So those startup communities look different. It just can be sliced many different ways.
You've seen one startup community, you've seen one startup community.
Yeah.
What type of data do you collect from the hubs, and how do you use it?
We collect a lot of data, and we're getting a little more refined on that, but you know, technical number of companies that receive technical assistance, that are companies that are connected to a mentor or an EIR. Events, we certainly track that number of events and how many people attended. We don't have a lot of data on this now, but we'll be looking at kind of capital and, of the companies that, are receiving support, are they receiving additional funding, whether it be dilutive or non-dilutive. And, we will get more granular, I think, as we move further down the line. But I'm hoping in the next quarter, we will have for public viewable dashboard that we'll share with our Innovation Council to demonstrate kind of the value of what they're providing.
I thought that was a final question. This will be the last one. What is the percentage of universities/colleges that make up your hubs?
I don't have an exact number. Right now, we have one of the hubs is hosted, and the lead organization is a university. So we have three research universities, probably four major universities in the state. But the most active involved with the hubs are Portland State University in Portland, and they host the Metro Region Hub, and then Oregon State University and University of Oregon, more in the southern Willamette Valley. So they are involved and that's kind of an ongoing process and making sure that there's a strong connection there and that there's support going both ways. Obviously, the universities have existing support programs for entrepreneurs that are kind of within their university. And so we're trying to find ways to align and coordinate and, really want to make sure the hubs are not duplicating services, but leveraging the best of both the hubs and the universities for support going both ways.
All right, that's a great note to end on. Jordana, again, thank you so much for this webinar. I really appreciate it. Today and always just ongoing relationship that we have. So we'll, as Heather mentioned, we'll share the live recording with everyone a little bit later today, some additional links, documents. We'll include our emails there as well if you want to reach out. But just appreciate the thoughtful questions and spending some time with us with what I'm sure is a busy day. So thank you again. Take care, y'all.
Thank you, Kevin. Take care.
Bye.